All right, guys, should I start? So it looks like my name is Colby Watkins. I am the founder of the CBD and Cannabis Professional Business Network, which is the largest group on LinkedIn for CBD and cannabis, has about 25,000 members. Also co-founder of Where's Hemp, which is an online B2B data house that helps companies get leads and close transactions. We have an awesome panel today, knowledgeable group. I'm going to let them start introducing themselves, and then we're going to jump right into it.
My name is Austin Rodas. Am I mic'd up here? Austin Rodas. I'm the CEO of Dream Nutrition. We're a hemp CBD company. Started in March of 2015, right after the Farm Bill, and also
Today, I'm Dr. Lola. I'm clinical pharmacist certified in medical cannabis. I'm the founder of WCI Health. We are alternative health and wellness company, and we basically help people get and stay well using the healing powers of botanical. I personally help healthcare professionals, dispensaries, and plant medicine enthusiasts understand the health benefits of plant medicine so they can help their clients to understand what's going on with their wellness journey, saving money as well as avoiding adverse reaction. I'm the author of A Pharmacist's Guide to Cannabis, Perspective of a Non-Conforming Clinician, and also host a podcast, Let's Talk Plant Medicine, Cannabis, Psychedelics, and Pharmaceutics with Dr. O on our podcast platform. I'm glad to be here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Mike Flemons. I'm Vice President of Technical Business Development for Source Technology. We work in the cannabis space. We have multiple companies, THC companies, CBD companies, do medical research, biochemist by training.
Great, thank you. As you can see, guys, we have an incredibly knowledgeable group. What I'm going to do is just kind of start from the top here. Terpenes is a very diverse subject, a lot of material on it. We'll see where it goes, but can someone just start by just defining what is a terpene?
Yeah, I will start that. When you think of terpene, first that want to come to your mind is, I know when we think of terpene, we don't even think about cannabis or CBD or THC, but you got to realize that terpene, they are what we call aromatic compound. What does that even mean? It means aroma, smell. That's what aroma means. It means it smell. So they are the smelling chemicals that we have, not just in our plants like cannabis or CBD or THC, but in nature. Every plant, botanical, the smell that we smell around us, this is as a result of terpene. And of course, the smell of cannabis, funny enough, people will be like, what? You mean that smell is, yeah, the smell of terpene is what you perceive when you smell that cannabis smell. So terpene is a very essential in our daily life. It's the same thing you see in your orange. And initially we thought, scientists generally, we felt like, okay, terpene was used by plants as a way for them to protect themselves against enemies, the bad guys, you know. That was what we thought, but fast they also have medicinal properties. So this is what we are finding out. And of course, you know, we all know that saying, you are what you eat. So if we are eating this botanical orange, garlic, and all this stuff, and these plants are using this compound as their defense mechanism, basically what that means is that when we take it in, it's literally doing the same thing that it's doing to the plants in our body as well. So these are really, really hidden secrets, hidden gems, hidden golden nugget that we have not really tapped into the way we really should be looking into them.
Awesome, thank you. And can you guys get into a little bit what to look for when choosing a terpene profile for a product, or what to look for in general when adding terpenes to any sort of product?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to what we're looking at now is CBD's obviously been the poster child for a long time of this industry. And I think now we're seeing that terpenes and minor cannabinoids at the same time are coming into play. And I think what it comes down to is us moving forward with looking at some terpenes have more affinity on your CB receptors than CBD even does. And it can help basically turn up or turn down the volume of CBD and how it interacts in your body. And so I think, what we've done as a company is we've looked at specific terpene profiles, put those inside products for specific outcomes. So there's a lot of terpenes that are specific to inflammatory response or pain or sleep or appetite or different things. And I think it comes down to, from a company perspective, it's looking at what anecdotal research or knowledge we have on how these terpenes are going to affect our customers and consumers for their greatest outcome. And I think that as a consumer, it's looking at finding companies or people that have the knowledge to combine those terpenes in a quality fashion to kind of get that outcome that somebody desires.
Awesome, thanks. So would you say that terpenes is still being tested in terms of the actual effects that they have per each individual terpene, and then on top of that, what happens when you mix multiple terpenes together?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's some of the research and remember that because hemp was still scheduled till December of 2018, the ability to actually do work on it in human trials was exceptionally limited. And even what you see today, the trials are still exceptionally limited. And there are some very specific flies in the ointment of all of the medical research when you read it. So they'll talk about using a specific terpene to get a specific therapeutic effect, and the absence of presence of reducing or increasing the therapeutic effect. But then they don't pay attention to how it's being presented to the body. So there's been a recent study published where they've taken the same cannabinoid profiles and given them to the same group of people at the same dosage, but they use 4 different delivery mechanisms, and they got 4 radically different results. So it becomes really hard. Like there's a famous paper that everyone cites that talks about beta-caryophyllene attaching itself to CB2 receptors. And when you read the paper, when you do the deep dive on it, it's very questionable, their results. So 3 follow-up examinations followed based on beta-caryophyllene and CB2. And the 3 that followed basically debunked the notion that it actually worked. But when you read literature and articles, you read about all these studies that everyone cites the beta-caryophyllene attached to the CB2 receptor. Well, 1 out of 4 doesn't make it so. And even the 1 out of 4 was sketchy. So relying on this research is tough at best. And the problem is that there's all this anecdotal mythology around the entourage effect, right? It's a very misunderstood concept and from a biochemistry and metabolic pathway, it doesn't hold up. Do the terpenes have certain therapeutic effects in the body? Yes. Do cannabinoids have specific therapeutic effects in the body? Yes. But it's the same way when you drink a chamomile tea, you're really looking for the terpenes in there that help you sleep, but there are other things that come along with it. But at the same point, those same terpenes are found in other foods that we don't traditionally associate with rest. Like no one tells you if you want to sleep good at night, just drink cumin tea, right? But same terpenes, so why are we not doing that? Well, it turns out that all of these terpenes don't play super nicely together. You have a gazillion cannabinoids, a gazillion terpenes, and trying to deconstruct them so that you can literally isolate and look at effects one-on-one is very, very challenging.
Awesome, thanks. So with that being said, as a consumer, what precautions can a consumer take to have an understanding of what type of terpenes that they're ingesting, and also at that to make sure that they're not going to have adverse effects?
For me personally, just what I was saying, talking to the guys before we came in here, we cannot put this botanical in a box. We can. I grew up in western part of Africa, where we use botanical. It's our first line of therapy when we are sick. And I remember growing up as a little girl, we had a mango tree at the back of my house that when we have malaria, we sick, parents go grab the leaf, grab the bark, cut it, put it and brew it, kind of like the ayahuasca type of brewing, give it to you, you drink. Before we know it dawned on me that what they are actually tapping into was the quinine active ingredient, the quinine that is in the mango tree, which is one of the chemicals that the big farmers find a way to manufacture into our quinine sulfate that will not give folks when you are traveling to a place like Africa, you will need come to me for consultation is this. If you are not able to get somebody that knows what they are talking about, get with a company that knows what that have the science background to be able to explain this thing. This is not magic. It's not hocus pocus. When you get somebody that knows the chemistry behind what you're doing, the next thing I tell my clients is that if you can get the broad spectrum in the plant, in its environment, that's the best way to go. Because we are not just talking about topping. We have flavonoid, we have essential oil. There's a lot of things that is in your botanical. So for us to start extracting it, we already did that. We did it in dronabinol. I dispense dronabinol to patients for cancer, for nausea and vomiting due to cancer, chemo, and for HIV/AIDS, for weight loss. For the whole plant in our system. We want to encourage broad spectrum. If we cannot do that, we will take whatever the government will give us. Sure. Then you go to the next level. And when you find the profile that works for you, document it. You have to document, have a diary, document what is working, the dosage, because really what we are having right now is having to do anecdotal evidence. But we know these plants do work.
Sure.
And a lot of our pharmaceutics right now, morphine, aspirin, a lot of these pharmaceutics that we have right now were initially derived from plants. So our botanical do work. And does that mean it's for everybody? No, it is not for everybody. Just like we tell folks, don't eat green with your coumadin, warfarin. Why? Because green has vitamin K already. So when you combine it with your warfarin, it thins your blood more, and it can lead to bleeding. So you have to have somebody that knows the background that can lead you. That is what I do with my clients. And even clinicians, a lot of them don't have the background. For me, I'm an herbal user, and I'm also a clinician. So that helped my clients to get like the best of both worlds. And I'm not saying everybody has to have my background, but at the same time, you want to get with a reputable folks, not the gas station CBD now.
Sure. So if I'm pulling two things out of what you just said, the first piece of advice would be to seek help or seek professional advisement before you take anything. And then the second piece that I thought was interesting was that you were talking about having the whole plant, the full botanical, versus going the infused route. So many tinctures, so many things you see today, people are infusing additional terpenes in. Are you saying that that's the best way is going whole plant versus just having additional terpenes just infused in?
Yeah, in a way, for me, if I have to choose, I'll go with the whole plant any day, any time. I trust those. But if we cannot get that, these toppings, they do work.
Sure, sure.
You see, and I do tell people, yeah, sometimes we try to label the big pharma as the bad guy. Yeah, we know all that stuff. But we're going to need them at one time to use their knowledge because they've been in this business for a very long time and they have the know-how that might work. So if we cannot get the whole plan, we still can add the toppings to what we are doing, but you have to know which one is gonna work for your situation. Right now, we don't know have a way, and like the gentleman on my left hand was saying, it's just a word of mouth. Even the science, we don't know. The best is for the government to give us opportunity to do more studies.
Sure.
That's what we need. Other than that, you have to document what is working for you.
Can I segue on that?
Please
Oh
do.
yeah. Do you have a question?
Question.
I had a question in regards to like terpene combinations. You guys have referenced that they don't necessarily pair well together. Is that more of a concept of like their effectiveness and potency, or is not playing well together an implication that there might be adverse effects solely because they're combined together?
Is best, but the thing about it's a blend of trying to get to the point. So like genetics, obviously, when we go harvest the field and we extract one corner, if we do a whole plant extract, one corner of the field could be completely different from the other corner of the field. So it's a blend of like, we know, my belief is that a whole plant extract works best, right? It's a botanical general knowledge that nature makes things pretty well, and then we as humans go in and we're like, oh, we like this, this, and this, but not this. We're not going to use that, right? But the thing for us as a product perspective was reproducibility, is that I want somebody to buy a product in January and I want them to buy it in December and it be the same exact product. So we have both full plant, the whole plant extract, but then we also have a product where our medical doctor formulated a blend and they reintroduced terpenes back in. I say that in the lab perspective, to answer your question, we have blended terpenes together in the lab. For instance, we'll put 6 terpenes in. We'll put BCP, limonene, linalool, 6 different terpenes in, and then we send it to a lab, and there's only 4 terpenes, and one of them is one that we didn't even put in. So we talked about this before we came in here. Is some of those molecules, those terpenes, or terpenoids, will morph into a completely different terpenoid in the lab, and how that happens, I have no idea. But we know that we had to come in and find isolated terpenes from good sources and figure out which ones worked well together in a manufacturing perspective, because they can completely change in the lab. And from a biochemistry perspective, I mean, you could probably take that better than me. But
I know. It is the genius.
Yeah, does anyone want to shed light on why that might happen? I know we have a very smart panel.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is like, and we'll segue in a second, but the terpenes are terpenes because of their chemical structure. But when you look at, like, think of them as a chemical, like not as a thing, like, right? So it is a chemical. There was a law in California, Prop 65. And Prop 65 said you can't have all these cancer-causing agents in products like benzene and toluene. So there were some formulations on the market that they stripped out the benzene and toluene and introduced limonene, right? Limonene is an amazing solvent. It is a chemical, it is a solvent, it has solvation power, right? Myrcene, another fond one, is on the Prop 65 list. Myrcene in high doses causes cancer, and myrcene is not allowed in food and beverage products, but it's not illegal to have cannabis, and it's certainly not illegal to eat a mango or drink a beer, which is also, hops are insanely high in myrcene. So it's interesting how, like, different industries and different regulatory bodies look at the same compound. So when you go back, when consumers are now faced with this, or if you're a product developer, like, we have 2 things to pay attention to. One is, what are the therapeutic benefits associated with specific terpenes? Now, to the good point was made earlier, a lot of these were developed as defense mechanisms for a plant to avoid predation, right? So they have a bitter taste or an off note so there's a flavor perspective. So you have to balance what your therapeutics are, what your intended audience is for those therapeutic avenues, But then that specific terpene may have those therapeutic values, but may taste noxious. So you don't want to put it in your beverage, like, because the consumers won't do it. Now there are, like, depending on how it's presented, sublinguals or tinctures or smoking products, you're associated with that. But as the cannabis population kind of gets into the market, they don't want to drink something or eat something that tastes noxious. So you have to balance that, strike the right balance between repeatable experience with it. Like you want the same people to come back and say it really works. So it's a really interesting dynamic where you're trying to, when you talk to a flavorist or product developer, they're like, I need you to strip out this terpene. And when you're thinking about therapeutic values, you really want that terpene in there. So it's really become a muck and a mire as far as how you balance the chemistry, how you balance the therapeutics, and how you balance the flavor and aroma characteristics of the products.
I still feel like at the end of the day, it's like back in the days when the likes of gabapentin and aspirin were initially introduced. These products were tested, studies were done over and over and over. I still feel at the end of the day, we have pharmaceutics now that works relatively good because of extensive studying that has been done. If we get an opportunity to be able to do studies and reproduce these studies, it will feel comfortable to begin to say, okay, we can replicate this thing. We still need a lot of studies.
Absolutely. So is that where you see this industry heading, or is that better way to ask the question would be what does the terpene industry need right now to substantiate it?
What I think is that right now, when you look at the United States, I think the world is leaving us behind, especially Israel. They're doing a lot of studies out there. Yeah, some of these studies, they are kind of shady, but we know a lot about botanicals. This formulation, I see it anyway. I think the consumers are going to be proactive. Just like I was saying, you need to document what is working for you. Whatever is working for consumer, they're going to come back and start getting it. And I think from there, uh, manufacturers and product development will start paying attention to what is going. I think the cat is already out of the bag. We're going to figure this out. I think the topping as a space is gonna go forward.
Sure.
I think also to add to that, I think that there's two spaces from our perspective as a product developer. One is the lab testing. Is that this is a very common thread on not only with cannabinoids but with terpenes, is when we can send the same exact product, the same batch to 3 different labs, and we're going to get 3 different results. So when our medical doctor is formulating terpene blends, we send that to different labs and we get different results of terpenes because their standards of what they're testing also are up to par. And there needs to be a lot of research and standardization done in the lab level, which helps us be able to get anecdotal research with products because we actually know what's in it, the consumer knows what's in it, and then we can build from there. And then also I think it's the extraction methods as well. So when we come back to whole plant botanical, full spectrum extracts, which I think are the most effective. But again, when we use different extraction methods, you're getting temperature, those terpenes are going to either evaporate or morph into different terpenes. So you're not really getting a true expression of the plant that you're wanting to extract from, especially when you're introducing different temperatures. And so that's a big thing, I think, is figuring out how we can most naturally represent the plant and its true genetic expression in a product that's stable and reproducible for consumers. I think that's where we kind of need to put some focus.
Absolutely.
And one more point of clarity on that, like right? That's what you want. It doesn't matter whatever anything else could struggle on. People brew a cup of coffee in the morning for caffeine. People drink Red Bull for caffeine. Which one works? They both work because it's caffeine that you're interested in. It doesn't matter what the source. It doesn't matter what other things. There's lots of flavonoids and oils and extracts that come extracted from the coffee bean. And they may play some other role in some other biological system, but we all ingest caffeine because of the caffeine effects. So does it matter if it came from a whole bean, or from a tea leaf, or from a Red Bull? No, it works. So that's where the science and the industry have gone disparate ways. Like, and there is truth. Like, these biologics do work. Like, are they slightly amplified by the other things that come out of it? Yes, very likely. Are there other things in there that are also working? Yes. But you have to figure out why you're taking the product and what is that particular therapeutic route you're looking for. Because there really is, a molecule is a molecule is a molecule. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
But I gonna disagree a little bit. I'm gonna deviate. I won't say disagree. I'm gonna deviate a little bit there. When you that analogy of Red Bulls and maybe Starbucks, the way your Red Bulls makes you feel is different from the way Starbucks makes. Yeah, it's gonna keep you awake, but there's a difference there. That's what I feel. Like, of course, nature, even the botanical, is not going to be enough for all of us. It's like you say, we're going to grow all the food that United States are going to eat from the soil. It's going to be without fertilizer. Where are we going to get that from? We are all going to starve. See, the botanical, we are not going to be able to get it. But as we start trying to engineer stuff, it's gonna really get down there to really, really gray area. Just like now, we have all this engineered food, and what have you noticed of late? There's been so increase in disease and all kind of stuff that we never used to see. So when we start engineering and going down that rabbit hole, there is a gray area. It was saying about the topic. These are chemicals to phenol that could be carcinogenic. It's a great, as their chain grows, as you apply it to this compound, they become very dangerous for you. Just like your hydrocarbon, your propane, which is your 3-carbon chain. When you start extracting from the butane and the pentane, they're gonna extract more. You get more, but you are also beginning to get into that gray areas of carcinogenic compound. And when I say carcinogenic, I just mean the compound that can cause cancer. So it's a gray area.
All right. Sure.
Like he said, he talked about, when we drink coffee, we drink for the caffeine,
Mm-hmm.
But when this CBD thing came out, I think first it was like, oh, we don't need the THC. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But when I came here yesterday, that was my first time experiencing beta-8. Yes, I think, just like he said, you drink coffee, it's like somebody want to drink decaffeinated coffee. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Why you want to drink decaffeinated coffee? You go drink coffee, you go drink coffee for coffee,
Sure.
So, to me, I think they're going to have to find a way, like the TAE, to get the THC, to at least imitate the THC or whatever, to still get the medical thing together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, but to decry anything THC and say, oh, you just want the cannabis,
Cannabinoid.
yeah. I think that's is kind of a drag.
Sure.
Yes.
I think a lot of that comes down to regulations and legality too. right? So you look at our trade show here, and you walk in, and it's a Delta 8. Like, what's CBD, right? It's a CBD expo, but it's becoming a Delta 8 expo. But
That's
if we
already
had
Delta 8
no
out there.
limits on what we were allowed to use from the plant,
Yeah.
that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
So if we, and I think that goes across the whole industry, all the way through CBD oil, because we don't have 0.3% THC in full spectrum because of its efficacy. We have that because that's what's legal. So you're now manipulating the efficacy of all the products that we create based on legality and regulations versus actually what works well for people. So I think that when that changes, and when we have full federal legislation that opens up the laws and what we're allowed to do, that completely changes the game of how everybody creates and consumes products.
You know, I'm going to ask a question that's not even really that terpene related. I just kind of want to get your opinions on it. In a perfect world, what would you say the appropriate legal limit would be for THC in a full spectrum product to be sold universally? So in other words, would you call the legal limit 0.3, like 0.03, like, or 0.3 like it is now, or would you call it 0.5?
For me personally, I think the whole plant should be treated as a nutraceutical, and maybe it's because I'm coming from a clinical or pharmaceutical background. I think we should take it as in we do pseudoephedrine. We have some with some specific dosage of cannabinoid in them as over the counter, where people, you need vitamin, you go and pick your vitamin. You don't need to talk to the pharmacist, you grab it. But when you need Sudafed, you come to me, it's still over the counter. It's not prescription, but you come to the counter, you show your ID, we give it to you. But there's a school of thought that feel like, oh my gosh, now the big farmers are going to grab everything, they're going to turn it into a medicine. No, you still need to regulate it in a way. You don't want a 10-year-old going to over the counter and grabbing a THC field product. So that's the way that people can still get access to it affordable, but we are able to kind of manage the level that gets out, especially to the young. And it's not like it doesn't do anything bad to the kids. You get what I'm saying? Sure. The Jamaican of the Rastafarian descent, they did use this plant for their kids. So that's not the case. But it's a medicine. What I tell people is you're not gonna go to over the counter and grab a bottle of Tylenol and gulp it down. Your the legacy folks to be able to do what they've been doing for generations. That's my opinion. I know I've gotten a little bit of pushback. Oh, it's gonna be a medicine. They're gonna now, But that's how I take.
Right,
So like 0.3%. Well, you can have something that's compliant and take enough of it.
Sure.
So it's an interesting, like, you almost want to present it in, it has to be by the format that it's presented in.
Sure.
So like the classic example is non-alcoholic beer. Like there's a limit on alcohol in non-alcoholic beer. You're literally going to drown before you get drunk.
Right.
On that limit. So it should be, if it's a tincture and you have the possibility of consuming the entire bottle, it might be this. If it's smokable form, if it's like, it almost needs to be form by form.
Sure. I mean, that does get into the weeds though, right? If you're having a bunch of jelly bellies that are, you know what I mean? I've seen that go quite wrong. Cool. All right, gonna switch it up a little bit, guys. A little bit more of an interesting question. What is the most interesting terpene to you and why?
I think mine would be BCP. It's probably the one that I have the most knowledge on, the one that we've worked with the most, and the one that I think has interesting effects both on efficacy, and then we've seen that's one that the old trick of the trade, if somebody gets too high, they can smell black pepper and use BCP to like counteract the effects of THC.
No way.
I think there's a lot of interesting affinities on the CB receptors with BCP, and the way that it kind of, like I said earlier, turns the volume up or down for CBD, it seems to have the most effect on that we've seen. And so I think that's just because of the dynamic that it has, I think that's one of my my top ones for me.
Is that out of a cannabis plant? Is that where BCP comes from, or what is that?
Yeah, not only cannabis.
Sure.
Yeah, so black pepper is really high in BCP. So
Got
if
it.
you have like a lot of full spectrums that are like low temp, like hydrocarbon extractions that keep a lot of the terpenes intact, they'll be very. You can taste them and they have a bite to them. They have like a black peppery bite to them.
Sure.
That's a lot of the BCP that's still intact, which is an extremely powerful terpene for consumers.
Thanks.
Not to ride on your coattails, but I would absolutely agree with your choice. That's my favorite, both because for me, like that's the terpene that when I have the luxury of dosing like individual terpenes at different levels across different products, and that one for me seemed to have the most specific effects. Now I can tell you that different people in our lab, like they will find different terpenes that have a stronger affinity, but the taste and the experience for me with BCP is absolutely the best. So it's my favorite as well.
Looks like you have a consensus.
Oh, wow.
I love that. I love that topic. I call it a non-conformist because I am a non-conformist myself. So I love it. The fact that it is not just a topping, it is also a cannabinoid. And basically, like he said, having that affinity for the CB2 receptor. So basically everything that we think of when we talk about CBD, that is it right there. So for people that don't want to use, even deal with cannabis or hemp or all those other stuff, you can go grab your anything pepperish, your spice. That's it's clove and all those spice. You can grab that and still have a cannabinoid effect. It is amazing. I love the fact that it's able to have that potential. There it goes. It's amazing, you know. But if other than that, because we are so consensus, the other one that I will go for is limonene.
Okay.
And why I like limonene is that we even use it in our day-to-day active life without needing any scientist to come and tell us. You get your lime, you see that smell, all that when you cleaning product for antibacterials and all that. It has bronchodilatory properties and all that. What I mean by that is it can relaxes your lung and helps you to breathe better. So these are stuff that when we take the science out, we have it in nature.
Sure.
And that is the best way we could explain it to take that scary part for average folks that is so confused. I mean, you talk about the legalization, then you throw in dosing, then you throw in topping. It's getting really confusing for folks out there. So that's when it comes to topping chemistry, the best way I feel we could explain it is like just use their day-to-day activity, day-to-day product to explain how else they can get it used.
So going kind of the opposite way of that, do you ever see a world where people are just taking like a limiting pill or BCP pill? Like, are they ever going to be a sole thing by themselves, or are they always going to be attached to a CBD? Are they always going to be attached to even an orange, right?
Whether we like it or not, I mean, the companies, the big people that have the money are going to come in and develop this product. See, the problem we had with cannabis, botanicals generally, from beginning of generation, is we don't know how to dose it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of how the what they call them now, these people that are for prohibition, the prohibitionists, that was how part of how they were able to be successful. Mm-hmm. Because the pharmaceutical company that were compounding it then, they find it difficult to dose. So folks, and especially here in this Western world, we are used to easy life. Mm-hmm. So when you present that pill that this contains that, a lot of people are going to buy it. The other thing you got to realize is that the brewing from the nature, it tastes nasty. The herbal medicine that I used to take when I was a kid, a lot of the time we have to be forced to drink those stuff. It's disgusting. So folks are gonna go for the pill. It's gonna sell like a hotcake. It's gonna be a great market for it. But some people still gonna stay in their lane. But it's gonna be a great market. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely. I mean, it's already.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
already an industry.
They
like,
have gummies.
yeah.
Yeah, we got a Delta 8 all over there. Out
And
there.
you look at essential oils and diffusers. That's an industry already. But yeah, I think it's 100% going to be a complete
And it's
industry.
gonna be within the next 5 years. Within the next 3-5 years, it's gonna be wide west. I'm telling you.
Awesome. All right, thanks guys for being such a great panel. I'm going to open it up to the crowd. Who's got 5 minutes?
Can you speak on kind of dosing? I know there's like different perceived effects and absorption styles, but when you look at a product, say a COA, what are you looking for in a terpene rather than just being detected? Rather than say like this value actually looks like it's going to be beneficial.
It's sort of the Pandora's box, right? So yes, like what terpenes are in there at what level, but then, so what's your C of A? Is it a gummy? Is it a liquid? Is it a tincture? Is it an inhalation product? And then based on the delivery system, like it's, what we have to get away from is stop thinking about like how much is in the thing I'm taking is versus how much of the thing I'm taking is getting into me. So like most people familiar with, you take a multivitamin in the morning, you have generated the world's most expensive urine, because your body literally can only grab X percentage of that and then uptake. So you present, like if you can take a 10 milligrams, but that represents X percent of uptake, then you know you need to present the body with 1,000 milligrams so that you can get that percentage that you need. So it becomes really challenging when you look at a product and it says, oh, it's 0.1% BCP. Like, well, great. What does that mean? Well, no one really knows at this point in time, other than it contains that amount of product. How much of that, once you ingest it or inhale it, is actually going to get into your body? That's the work that needs to be done, right? Anecdotally, we know we can get there. Like different people respond to different amounts of products in a different way. So that in itself is the case study, and says when you ingest this gummy that contains these materials at these percentages, that's what's getting in your bloodstream. And that's where we get, because when you think about pharmacological studies, like the makers of Advil, they understand that when presented in the body at this dosage, you get a relative dosage into blood plasma of X. And, obviously there's a big bell curve in a metabolic rate and size and all that stuff. But so we have the same problem with cannabinoids. Like, did you take a tincture first thing when you woke up in the morning on an empty stomach? Did you take it right after a big greasy meal? When do you take it? Are you fasting? What's your metabolic rate currently? Do you just come from the gym, or are you sitting down enjoying, a football game? All of those factors play in a role in the metabolism of these compounds, the absorption of the compounds. So it literally is the hardest, the hardest question is, what should I look for and how much should I take, right? Like, well, when you go to the bar, does everybody get one shot of vodka and they all fall on the floor? No, some people drink one shot of vodka and fall on the floor, and some people unfortunately can drink half a handle and still drive home at night. So it's that mechanism that you have to be kind of attuned to your body. This is a great segue into playing, right? Just try. Get different compounds, buy the same formulation from the same company, and then get different formulations from the same company, because at least you've level set the bar. It becomes even more challenging when you have the container from company X and container from company Y, and you're trying to cross compare them. They may not present to the body in the same way. So that you just kind of have to try and see what's good for you and what works for you. And do a ton of research, but really there is no answer, unfortunately, yet.
Awesome. All right, guys. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have. I want to thank my panel for being so knowledgeable on the wonderful world of terpenes. Hope you guys got something out of this. I certainly did as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.